Hello, everyone. We are here with another CSM interview, and I just want to remind everyone before we get started that I'm doing this for two reasons. One, so you can make an informed choice on candidates and their issues, and two, so my community can figure out who to put on our ballots. I am not the one who comes up with our ballots. I put that to my management in Warm Life and my community team on eRookies. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do in EVE and your history.
I'm Mike Azariah. I've been flying since 2008. I've done bits and pieces of everything, except I haven't lived in Pochven and I haven't done faction war. I've been on small gang roams. I've been in large wars. I was part of the Winter War on the losing side. But for the past decade, and that is scary when you put it that way, I've been helping out in Rookie Help Chat and flying Operation Magic Schoolbus, going around to the individual career systems and giving new bros fitted ships from frigates up to cruisers, depending upon their age. I also have served on the CSM in, I have to try to remember, 8, 9, 10, 15... 16, I think, and maybe I've lost track. I know I've served 6 terms, and I'm running again, probably maybe for the last time, because I'm getting kind of snow on top, which isn't melting in the summertime, and just I don't travel as well as I used to, being a grumpy old man.
So what made you start the Magic Schoolbus?
It was a podcast, Podside. Shout out to people who are probably long gone from the game, but Protovarius I mentioned in my news brief last night, and Cypher and a few others. Telkin used to come in on a regular basis. Man, that guy could do a rant full of expletives, but he would roar at a fleet if they were not following instructions. Hilarious guy to chat with. Anyways, I was saying the pod side was mainly for the Goon Fleet and their affiliates, but they said, we invite other people to come on. And so I said, I'll come on. I'm even on the other side of the war. They said, you're welcome. And they made me welcome. And were willing to listen to a guy who was fairly new, spoke from the other side and asked questions, and they would answer them straight. And I said, one of the problems with EVE at that time was there was not really a good start to the game. The new player experience was, here's a ship, good fucking luck, off you go. And as a result, it was a lot of players, the churn was nasty. I said, somebody ought to be there to actually say, hi, I'm a real person. Greet them and kind of get them into the game and realize that MMO means there are other people in the game. I said this would be a great idea for somebody to do, and one of the listeners who was listening live deposited $5 billion in my sent $5 billion to me in game and said, "Go ahead, start it." I went, "Somebody just donated," and they said, "What? How much?" $5 billion. I think I'll try this. And immediately a whole bunch of other listeners pretty much doubled that. So I started with a nest egg of 10 billion going out and moving ships into the career systems and greeting them. And it's just been, the operation runs by player donation. And my line is, I'm going to quit when I run out of assets. These days I've moved it to 3 conditions for me to quit. I'm going to quit when I run out of assets. I'm going to quit when Eve dies. I'm going to quit when I die. One of the 3. Smart money's on the 3rd one.
Well, hopefully not anytime soon.
Well, I'm hoping that too. I'm biased.
So, everyone who campaigns usually has some sort of issue on their platform. What are yours this year?
I have a few. I was searching for, before I connected up to you, for my green book, but for the life of me I can't find it right now. Cashel remembers I take notes on paper, and I bring that book to the meetings. I keep it in front of me and take notes as we're having the various meetings, but at the summit I have that in front of me, and I have one page that's dedicated to, these are things that I would like to get fixed. right now I can't find my book. So there's a few things here and there that could be fixed. But a lot of what I do isn't, I've got one thing off the top of my head that somebody pointed out to me yesterday in Rookie Help Chat, and that's we have the official languages of EVE, you know, Japanese, Chinese, French, German, Russian. What am I missing? English.
Yep.
But for all the other players from around the world who use other languages, they can play. They just don't get the text in that language. But they form their small sub-communities. So there's a community of people who speak Czech. There's a community of people who speak Turkish. And chatting with with some of the ISD, one of them said he had been slowly collecting some of the language channels, and I took his data and made a a channel in game that lists all of the other languages that I know of, so that people who speak Turkish can be pointed to a group who speak Turkish. People who speak Norwegian, there's a Norwegian sub-community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just added Arab Voice, the Arabic community. But I think that sort of thing should not be done by an old guy in the game, but rather by CCP themselves to say these are not official languages, but if you want to be part of these communities, here are some places that you can go to. The only problem is you're pointing them to channels that are not moderated and can get very political at times. Right. So I understand the risk for CCP, but sometimes, and over the past couple of years, CCP has been starting to look like they're trying to pick up the slack that up until then players have been doing. The shift in the mapping, picking up from what Dotlan has been doing forever. In other words, they're not always dependent upon we, the players, to give them the official support that they need. I would strongly support that.
Cool. Anything else?
I always am in favor of seeing balance passes done on various things, especially when you see areas of the game that are being answered by only one ship. So, you know, right now the Gila or Gila, whichever way you say it, is king of the abyssal space. I don't know whether other things need to be brought up to it or it needs to be lowered down, but there shouldn't be, if you do this, this is a ship you should be in, or else you're doing it wrong. Right. Do you get what I mean? We've had that over the years, the FOMO, flavor of the month, where you have all Ishtars online was the accusation for a while, and fleets were all, you know, the firewall and that sort of thing, where you have one answer for it. That's not what I see EVE as. EVE is a rock, paper, scissors game where if you bring this, we'll bring that. So you have to consider maybe you'll bring this that beats that, but would lose. You understand what I'm saying? I like the choices. So balancing sometimes has to be data driven from what is being overused in the game. What can we do to bring it out? And they do that. If you look at the T3 decis, then you'll see two of them are used and the other two are the bastard children that are left to the side.
So keeping new players in mind and things that need to be balanced or maybe fixed, what do you think right now is one of the biggest barriers to brand new players undocking?
The getting them undocked is they're doing what they can with the dailies and that sort of thing. You know, make 3 jumps and you've got half your dailies done. That was a great idea. The vets make fun of it and think it's stupid, but they don't understand how fearful the new pros are of leaving their little comfy system and going places. So if we can get them out and moving, we'll get them past that speed bump of fear. One of the things you asked for things I might bring before, and there's been a complaint in the community, and I actually agree with them. And I know this is people who followed me for a while are going to go, "Are you okay, Mike? Is there someone just off camera with a gun?" Because I think we need PvP in the new player experience. they need to know that they're going to get shot at, lose a ship, not just to NPCs, but to other people.
Yes.
Because I see a lot of people going, this is bullshit. I had my green setting on. How dare they shoot at me? Because the people think that the green safety means that they're safe, as opposed to keeping them from just doing really stupid things that will get them killed. So one suggestion I'd like to bring forward is the old arenas that we used to have that were removed from the game, and there were reasons for that. But if they brought the arena back for New Bros, and you could go, and they had a air achievement, go into the arena in a frigate and fight. You will be allowed in the arena until you've won 3 times, and then you're no longer allowed in the arena. That way, you won't have wolves going out to just see how many sheep they can clip.
That would be a really elegant solution, yeah.
Yeah, it would be something. Now, New Bros will be making new accounts and bringing them in just so they can have their little jollies. But that means that the arena becomes an active area, but nobody becomes king of it. There's no leaderboard because 3 wins and you're out. And so, great, you got 3 wins, just like everybody else who passed out of the arena. But it gives the New Bros a chance to go out, see what it's like to face an opponent in combat in the same size hull. How it's fit will teach them that EVE is not fair.
Yep. So, speaking of people thinking that green safeties are safe, HiSec is safe, how do you feel about the recent change where they took the Lancers out of HiSec and the forward bases in the name of making HiSec safer?
I don't think they made HiSec safer. They just pissed off a lot of people. They do these things where they're trying to balance the churn, and to a certain extent, you always got to remember CCP is a business, and they read the numbers a lot more than they ever reveal to you or I. Although when we were there, we saw some of the numbers, and some of the stuff really makes you able to understand why they make these changes. On the other hand, I'd like to see a lot more A/B testing, where perhaps you said Caldari and Galente space will get this change, Minmatar and Amar will not, and then we see whether there's a shift of players to various spaces to actually experience where it's safer or less safe, or you understand what I mean, where we can see the differences being made. Right now, when you look at, because I tour all the career systems on a regular basis, I can tell you for a fact which ones are lively and which ones are dead. And Caldari, it seems like everybody goes for Caldari space because they've heard Jita is a big trade hub. And they don't want to be someplace where they have to drive for 2 hours just to buy a loaf of bread. That makes a difference, but we should do things, make differences in the spaces of the empires other than just name and missile systems, and to see if we can encourage people to come back to Minmatar, to come back to Galente. Amar's doing okay. They're in a definite second place, but it's like Jita, Amar, Galente.
Yeah.
Minmatar.
Did you hear anything in the rookie help about just the catchphrase trying to make HiSec safer? Did anyone kind of feel like, we worked so hard to get the message across that HiSec isn't safe, and now CCP comes across with this messaging?
I just see that, yes, I do, but usually in the rant as they're leaving the door, I was told it was safe. Bam! Out they go because they were ganked by one group or another, or thought. But the funny thing is the number of people who even don't know the border between HiSec, low-sec, and null-sec. So we'll have someone say, I was in HiSec, what happened? And we say, post the kill. And they were in 0.3 space, mining.
Yep.
And it's like, you weren't in HiSec. Oh yeah, I was. It was a positive number. No, you were not in HiSec. You were in low-sec, where you were a bunny who wandered into the wolf forest.
Yep. Didn't even bother reading that pop-up.
Yeah. No, well, who reads pop-ups after all,
Or MOTDs or, CSM questions or anything.
Yeah. And, the thing is, there are a lot of regulars in Rookie Help Chat. There's some great folks in there. We don't laugh at them while they're listening. And we just point out what went wrong, why it went wrong. But we also emphasize we'll get people occasionally come in and say, is high sec safe? And we say, it is relatively safer, but it is safe. You can die here, you can die there. It's just what's going to get you changes depending on where you are. And so we have lots of ways to die in EVE, but the only, and I say this a lot, the only safe place in EVE is docked in an NPC station. Other than that, you're a target.
Pretty much. What kind of... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Some of them say, well, if I'm docked in a player station, they can blow up. What do you think happens to you when the station you're docked in goes...
So what kind of content do you think keeps players logging in?
Social. There's people who play for other reasons, and probably for a minor amount, it's good enough. I had a guy this morning that said, after 15 hours of working on a laptop, I don't want this to feel like a university course I'm taking on the side. That was just this morning. And we said, there are things you can do. You don't have to learn all of EVE.
Yep.
But the thing that keeps the people the most, and this is what CCP Ghost was working on, was the friendship machine. When we talk to each other, when we form groups, and I don't mean just the huge alliances, I mean like what you do.
Right.
EVE Rookies is, now I don't know if you noticed it, but I was sitting back at the summit, and when you talked, damn, those the CCP people were leaning in and listening. Yeah. Because they wanted to know what you had done and how you were making it work. That you were doing a great job of forming a community. You formed a huge community. And like you said, that did a great thing. By the way, folks, even though this is supposed to be my interview, I do want you to know, even if you don't vote for me, vote for Cashel, okay? She deserves to get back in because CCP could learn some more from her. But I would like to be elected too.
To be completely honest, I think that it was absolutely fantastic, both of us being on CSM18. I think that they got to see, the new player experience from two completely different sides. Because none of us can do it all.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think you've said in the past, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that I'm kind of the entrance into the pipeline of you can talk to people that makes it easier for you to say, and you can be part of a community. Yep, 100%. So my job is to get them started talking, and then your job is to show them why they talk. Yep,
I try so hard to get into the rookie help, but once I get into game, I have so many people contacting me and whatnot. So, like I say, we need people at all different levels doing all different things in order to make this thing work.
Yeah, and it's about time, probably before the election, it's about time for me to rerun again the new player experience and see if anything's changed or what it's going on, or focus on the air side, just see if I can err on the side of good.
Well, speaking of opportunities, when we talk about people logging in, what do you think about the new daily opportunity, especially the 3-jump opportunity?
I like them. I think... they are a good, for a lot of gamers, they were looking for this before it was around. Like giving people a reason to log in, even if it's just 12 times out of the month, is 12 times more than we were encouraging before. Not just for events, but, log in, even if you don't bother doing the double, just logging in and doing one thing. I've got just shy of 500,000 EP stacked up. So if I don't feel like doing both things, I'll always get the 3 jumps because doing the bus, I do 3 jumps as a matter of just getting to work. But, if I can't be bothered the other, I'll just go, click, bing, spend a few thousand EP to get credit for that one. And then some of it gets reimbursed right away. Like you spend 4,000, I think, to do it, and you get 1,500 back. because you successfully did something. I think modern gamers expect that sort of thing. And a lot of this is sometimes we have to not just look at EVE, but we have to look at what the market is expecting of a game these days. Because EVE is 22 years old. What did we celebrate? Yeah, 22?
Yeah, I think so.
22 years old, but we cannot rest on our laurels and go back to being EVE Classic, because that was an ugly game. The characters were like kind of like the original Lara Croft, all planes.
So do you think CCP should keep developing the opportunities, put more in, maybe put, do a freelance project, or I don't know, some other things that you can possibly do? I guess join a fleet or do home fronts.
Yeah, I think Air should have something for try a home front, because heck, you guys run them fairly often. It's not hard to find a home front crew if you actually go looking for it. It's not hard to do some exploration outside of your career system. I refer to exploration as space Sudoku, because for me it's a very calming kind of Zen-like activity for me to just bop through a chain of systems. Usually I find a loop at the end of a long chain, if you understand what I mean on the map. Mm-hmm. A dead-end triangle, and then I just keep working the triangle because they respawn in that constellation. Right. So I can go there, have fun, pop if you can, see if I win a lottery, and if I do, yay. If I don't, oh well, got to play Space Sudoku for a while. Totally different styles of play, mine to other people, and that was something that came up. I don't know if you read other people's threads in the forums.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and one of the main attacks is I don't play the game.
You just drive the bus around, that's all.
Yeah, and the problem with that mindset is, it's really hard to debate, because my kill board isn't empty, but it hasn't had a lot of activity for the last couple of years. That doesn't mean that I don't play. I'd love to see these people say the same thing to the folks who fly Logi in their fleets.
Yep. Well, I mean, I'm right there with you. I didn't know if you knew this, but I apparently don't PvP. I just hit 3 trillion killed, and I don't PvP. But it's true. I don't PvP like these people. They're saying I don't. You don't play the game like other players do. Even Sandbox. We all get to choose our own paths and how we play.
And that's the thing, is they're gatekeeping, saying ours is the only correct way to play EVE. Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing what we're doing, then you're not playing EVE at all. Yep. And you have no right to run an election. You have no right to have an opinion or even voice anything. CCP should ignore you unless your kill board is green. It's an interesting thought process that they seem to go through, but it's not correct.
No, and gatekeeping is just another kind of toxicity. And speaking of toxicity, there was a campaign earlier this summer. You heard about the Providence campaign.
About the Provi
with Absolute Order.
Yeah, that one.
So, for people, if this is the first interview that they're watching, there was almost a MPSI style eviction ops early this summer in Providence against a corporation alliance called Absolute Order. Their leadership are fairly toxic. They say very unkind things in their Discord. They represent things that really shouldn't just be brought into the game, and are overall just people that I don't want to associate with. So
they were neo-Nazis for the most part, or Nazi. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate between people Nazi role-playing and people actual Nazis.
Yeah.
But Go ahead and finish explaining, and I got a couple things to say about this.
Well, what I have been asking everybody is, what did you think about this campaign? Do you think that the EVE community did the right thing by banding together to basically try to break up this very toxic group and try to get them to see what they're saying, what they're doing is not great for the game and is not a great look? Or, are you neutral about it, or do you think people went a little bit too far?
No, the best thing about EVE, if you ask me at different times, you'll get different answers. But one of the great things about EVE is EVE has consequences. Even in missions, if you fly a mission for Caldari, all of a sudden the Galente like you a little less. You have this give and take of what you do will have a lasting effect on the game. And so this was players reinforcing that concept to a group who had broken a lot of the social norms and standards, and the players, were just the consequences for what you had chosen to do. So this was not, the funny thing was, this was not the first time that this type of thing has happened. This was on a much larger scale. One of the previous CSM campaigns, and I think it go back to about 10, so a decade ago, there was a person who was definitely neo-Nazi, used a lot of, what's that number, 1488 or something like that?
Something like that.
You recognize that number? As he would always sign with that. And he ran for CSM, and the CCP dev at the time who was running it gave him a few days to kind of clean up his act. He didn't. He said, this guy is going to run, and he was removed from candidacy just because the dev said, we're not even going to give him the time of day or the chance to have a platform that he shouldn't have. Names from a decade ago, you'll forgive me if I screwed up. It was something like Ford Ravenot or something like that. But he was kind of the previous incarnation of Governor Lee, of just pushing the boundaries a lot, and not it does not feel like a role-playing way. So like I said, EVE has consequences for decisions you make. It has consequences for choices that you take. This is one of the reasons that I am very opposed to something that some people bring forward. Some people would like name changes brought into the game. And I am adamantly against that, because that is a way for people to try to evade the consequences of what they have done in the past, what their history is.
Right.
And have a fully skilled character. If you want to evade it, buy a character on the Character Bazaar and stop being an asshole.
Yeah.
But no, you don't get to keep this character and say, under new management, and pretend like it's all water under the bridge. We remember. And we want to remember. So that is one of the reasons why I don't like that sort of concept of name changes being a thing in the game. Live with your mistakes.
So we're going to switch now to more CSM-oriented questions. And since you have sat on a lot of councils, this will be a little bit different to some of the other previous CSMs. When you sit on the CSM, and you don't have to go into individuals, since half of them probably aren't even going to still be at CCP, but what teams do you work with the most?
The ones I work with the most, believe it or not, one of the ones that in the last, in CSM18, was I did a lot of chatting with marketing, because they were the ones most concerned with the new player experience. They want to see players stay. And so I was pulled out of the Friday presentations that we were doing. For those of you who don't know, on at the summit on Friday, it was a chance for CSM members to present a project or have a half hour to talk at the devs themselves. And the Berger and Rattati were there, and you had a chance to make a case for something. I missed some of the other CSM members' cases because after I gave my pitch, I was pulled out and spent the next hour and a half chatting with people out in the hall, so to speak. Like, we just grabbed a couple of chairs. And so I talked to the new player experience. I also talked to the PvE folks a lot. Like, I try to convince them to please make some new missions. Eve Survival is getting dusty because it hasn't had to be changed in over a decade. That sort of thing is where I focus on. I often ask of the higher up, like Rattati and Berger, my question is always why, and did it work? So a lot of what I do is follow-up questions from changes that happened a year ago or 2 years ago. You did X to solve Y. Did X solve Y? And if not, have we changed it back? Or have we modified it again? In other words, you threw a solution at a problem, but if it didn't stick, did you just say, well, that problem's been played with once, we can move on? So a lot of what I have, the joke I have in the council is that I'm kind of the institutional memory because I've served so many terms that I remember what has been tried before. I remember what was done last time and whether it worked. And just because, a lot of the devs come and go and they don't have the history. So I'm the encyclopedia.
So if you make it back onto the CSM for 20, what expertise do you think need to also get onto the council? We're going to get a lot of null representation like we do every year, and it's going to be mostly PvP and capital warfare, and a smattering of other things. But what kind of encompassing gameplay expertise do you think has been missing from the last couple CSM?
Well, I was really happy to see wormholes were well represented in the CSM19. Yeah. And I think they're running for re-election, and that sounds like a good thing. It's nice seeing decent representation for wormholes. You see this come almost every time there's an election for about the past 7 or 8 elections. People always say we should have set seats, almost like ridings. Mm-hmm. But they always do it by population and where you live or where you play. And I disagree strongly with that because most people who live in Null have high-sec alts to do their shopping and hauling so that they don't get caught in the war and that sort of thing. So a player does not live in one space. That means that you can't use writings. I would rather use game style writings, which is what you were just asking to a certain extent. So I'd like to see small gang warfare. I know there was one of those. I'd like to see wormholes. I'd like to see Pochven represented. I think there was somebody who kind of picked up the Pochven portfolio, but I don't know how active they were.
Drake Ideon, and he has been pretty active.
And so that's great. He'd be a great one to add on. I'd like to see industry and economics. For me, the 2 people I can name off the top that are running are Ken Feld and the Oz. Those guys know their numbers far better. Sometimes when they start talking, I really try to pay attention with moderate success.
Did you see the Angry Mustaches running again?
Yeah, I did.
So this is going to be interesting there.
Yeah, there's some really good folks who are incumbents running, and that's great. Now, can I segue this into something else that came up in some of my forums and back and forth? There are people who are telling me it's time for me to hang up my hat and retire from playing, doing CSM, seeing as I don't actually play the game. We covered that already. And they said, do you think there should be term limits? In other words, you should stop and give somebody else a turn. I have a great answer, but nobody will like it. Would you like to hear it?
I suspect I know what it is, but go ahead.
No, you don't. I think if they put term limits on players, they should also put them on alliances.
Oh, that's interesting.
Goons cannot run for the next year because they've been in for 3 years. block the big alliances and let the smaller groups get their people in, because they should let somebody else have a turn.
That is very, very interesting. I kind of like
It's
that.
the same. It's the same philosophy. Now the problem is they make it sound like my being in the council means that somebody else doesn't get a turn. I would occupy 1 seat out of 12.
Yep.
So it's not like other people can't run because I'm running. And the fact is, I lose as many elections as I win. So it's not really me sweeping everybody else under the rug by some sort of massive 30,000 initial votes. Mike's in, let's see who else gets in. Usually when I'm elected, I'm like 9th or 10th in the list, not 1st or 2nd. So no, there are term limits in the game. You cannot serve more than 3 seasons in a row, 3 terms in a row. I have served 6 times, yes, but not all in a row. I have broken it up. I did not serve last year, which means I could serve again this year. I think there will become a time when I just say, yeah, I'm going to step aside, but this is not that year. There will be a time when the Empire of Man comes to an end, but this is not that day.
So the next question is usually reserved for fairly new CSM, especially those who have been on just once so far. How would you, for all the candidates that may watch this video to see what you had to say, what is your advice for demonstrating support for issues that players want CSM to take to CCP?
Engage the people who brought it to you, ask questions, and ask the people. Like, it's one thing to say, the screen's too bright, I can't see anything. It's another thing to do, say, give me screenshots, give me evidence, bring stuff forward so that I have a package that I can take to CCP and say, here, not just pass on shaking fist at the cloud. If you're going to be representing the people, talk to them and get the information that you need. That's one of the things that happened way back with the bowhead, but it's happened with other things. Brisk did it with the red dot, which became almost a running joke when he fought that battle. It happens when Oz does not come and say you need to change the economy. He comes with about 3 pages of data saying these deals are good, these deals are bad. He even analyzes the NES store for what sales are good and what ones are stupid. So if you want to be a representative, you can not be a one-line representative. You can't do it in 20 words or less. You have to be able to argue your point, respond to the criticisms, and move on from that. And sometimes you got to accept the fact that CCP is going to say no. They might not tell you why, but sometimes they've told us why and shown us the data. And it's kind of like, but you're under NDA, so you got to go back and say, they said no. And that's where you have to drop it, because you can't tell them why the answer is no.
And kind of along the same line, I don't know, did you see the chatter on the CSM Discord about someone asking where we get in touch with like all the players? They have no idea how we do it.
I don't think you can get in touch with all the players.
But they were asking, you say that you've gone and talked to so-and-so, and they're like, how do you do this? What would your advice be to CSM or players that would want to come on the CSM for 21? Because really 2 weeks before voting on 20, it's a little too late.
Yeah, but 2 weeks before voting on 20 is about the time you should start campaigning for 21. The best day is yesterday. Tomorrow's not as good. The answer to that is you got to learn to get outside of if you have a community in game, then you're only representing a small group. This is one of the problems I have with the huge alliances that don't even run a campaign, because they know that their top 2 guys are going to get elected based just on their community alone. And that's great. That's how the system works. Not saying it needs to change. I'm just saying that they're not talking to the other people. Yep. They figure their alliance is enough people to talk to, but they're in a really big echo chamber. And I've been inside a volcano. I know what a big echo chamber looks like. the thing is, you have to go outside, so you have to be willing to talk to people from other communities. Maybe now, I think you have a great community, and you see a lot of people come through Eve and PSI, but because you have the incursion folks, you talk to people in incursions, because you have the home front groups, you have a really good access to a lot. You have your finger in a lot of pies.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think you're one of the best connected people who is not just speaking for their alliance, but speaking for the people who spread out. And the neat thing is, the longer you spend doing new player experience stuff, and you know this now, there's people who've moved on and they now have their own alliances, have their own groups. They still talk to you. So this gives you the chance to have a much wider footprint than somebody would assume you had based on your community itself. I get the same thing. I had somebody pop into Rookie Help Chat, say, I'm back after 8 years. Holy shit, Mike's still here? And we wound up chatting. But, they had taken an 8-year hiatus, come back and decide to check Rookie Chat, and these are people who still talk to me.
Yep.
So I have the same thing. I have a very wide footprint just because I saw people at the beginning.
Yep.
For the others, join channels. Look around and say, is there a wormhole channel? I know there's several incursion channels, and in campaigning, sometimes I'll drop into them and say, hi, I'm running. You guys got any questions, any beefs you want me to take up if I get elected? And I'll do that after I'm elected as well, and put the word out. Communication-wise, there's way too many Discord channels. You know how I feel about Discord. But there are Discord channels out there. But there is also Eve r/Eve on Reddit. There's forums that everybody who's on the forums complains, how come nobody's here? Especially CCP. When CCP devs put news out on Discord, I understand, because they have an official Discord channel. On the other hand, when they put news out on Reddit but don't put it somewhere in the forums, you feel like you're kind of being left out. This is where you should be putting the news, and then you could disseminate it. When I do my Eve News, Sports, and Weather, which, by the way, folks, I have a YouTube channel. Hopefully, Cashel, you can link that somewhere.
Absolutely.
When you post this. But I do a weekly news thing, but I do post it to the forums. I post it on Twitter, and I post it on Reddit, and it's on YouTube. So I've got 4 social media sites covered, putting the stuff out there and saying, if you got questions or something, come back to me, answer, ask something, and I'll try to put it in a video later. You got to reach out. You can't sit on your front doorstep and say, how come nobody talks to me?
So, along kind of the same line of advice, you've sat on many councils, and I don't think that some of them were working together as well as CSM18, from what I've heard.
No.
What advice do you have for candidates that may get on the CSM on how to interact with each other when they disagree, and when they disagree with CCP?
Okay, that's 2 separate things. I'm going to do the first one first.
Okay.
Treat the CSM as an NPSI fleet. It is fine that you have your alliance and they have theirs, but when you are talking in this situation, it's not purple. You are supposed to get along because you are in a fleet. You don't suddenly turn on the guy beside you because he flies for somebody else. You try to be respectful. I've had some CSM members screaming at me and calling me all sorts of bad names because they did not like the stand I took. And it was my stand to take. You can disagree with me. I'm fine with that. You can say I'm wrong. That happens too. On the other hand, getting angry and yelling at me just pretty much means that your opinion has now gone down a whole bunch in my book, and I really don't want to deal with you as much. If that happens too much, you have a very broken CSM, and CCP can sense that, and they like it when we can say, as a whole, the CSM thinks that you really need to rethink this bad decision. If we have one person screaming it's a bad decision and another person saying, it's not too bad, that weakens our ability to advocate for change, advocate for other stuff. When it comes to dealing with CCP, when you disagree, you have to accept the fact that they have the money and they have control of the servers. So you can get angry, but getting angry and yelling does absolutely nothing except weaken all of the CSM behind you. Even if you're not representing them on purpose, you as a CSM member become a pariah, and we get stained with the same brush. So you have to accept the fact that they're going to say no sometimes. You have to accept the fact that they are humans and they can make mistakes and choose differently than you think would be the right way. But you got to keep it. We're volunteers, but the phrase professional is the best way to do it. Yeah. You don't burn the bridges, because it takes a lot of work to rebuild a bridge. And some CSMs have been that, where we had a really bad one, and then the following CSM was just doing their damnedest to repair the bridges, build the trust again. And I've been in some of the bad ones, and I've been in some of the repair ones, trying to rebuild, reconnect, say, this is how we want to do it. The first CSMs I was in had a president and a vice president and a secretary elected within the CSM. And the president actually was the one who was supposed to talk to CCP, and the rest of us were supposed to nod in the back and just be the Greek chorus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then the secretary was supposed to be the one who would put minutes out and information out to the plebeian players, who were allowed tiny dribs of information as it was doled out by the secretary. About CSM 9 or 10, we internally said, this is stupid and it's not working. And we said, the last time that we had an election in the CSM was to vote to not have elections in the CSM, nor to have officers. Say, we are a council of equals. So we are equal in different ways, and that sounds kind of niggling, but if we're talking economics, I don't think I should have as much a voice as the Oz does. He knows more than I do on that subject. On the other hand, if it's about new player experience, the Oz looks over at me and shuts up, because he knows I know more than he does on that subject. We become subject matter experts, which is a better way to approach CCP, to be good at what you're talking about, or know who in the council is going to be the right one to do the talking for that case and for that situation.
So, last question before we get into our final thoughts. Projection. I know that in 18 this was a big deal. So big that we even moved a meeting, or got rid of a meeting, in order to have a meeting about projection. And it's obviously they hurt us, because we got some changes in this last expansion. If you get on CSM 19, are you satisfied with the changes that happened? Or do you think that this is going to be an ongoing topic, and should it be an ongoing topic?
I think it's a permanent topic, and I think it should be. I think there's always somebody unhappy with how the numbers are playing, because it's not the best for their organization. So, yeah, they've worked with Ansiplexes some, but, the key thing that I keep remembering is that most of the numbers, like the 11% tax rate, and I'll come back, I know I'm changing the subject slightly, but that was a number somebody pulled out of their ass. Right. And it doesn't mean it's a bad one, but they just said, we need a number, give me a number, 11%, that sounds good, we'll set it at 11%. It could have gone 10, they could have gone 13. I think to the same extent, some of the limiting factors we do on projection are somebody did their best guess for what a good number is. But until we run A/B testing, or do, this week it's going, or this month it's going to be this, next month it's going to be that, and we try to find the perfect testing, what do you think the odds are that a dev can grab the perfect number the first time out of the bag? Yep. And so I always think iteration is necessary with data, so that you have a chance to find what the good one is. But the problem is with things like projection is who gets to decide what good is defined as.
Yep.
because what's good for one group suddenly becomes really bad for the targets or for the defenders. And so it's who are we trying to cater to the most? The loudest voice, the most players, the most activity. Because if you want content, then you definitely need projection to be able to happen. On the other hand, it allows the blue donut to expand their borders far bigger than it should be. And then all of a sudden the content nosedives again. So it's the same thing, and I suggested this, and this is one of the times CCP pretty much went, no thank you, slammed the door in my face, was when I was talking about the Crimson Harvest.
I remember that.
2 years. Yeah. And do you remember their reaction was pretty much, I was shut down instantly.
Oh, yeah.
And my suggestion, I'll come out and tell the listeners, I said the 90% drop, or was it 90 or 100 at that time?
90%.
90% loot drop is great for a temporary event. Can we have one where it's 10%? Because if you think it's really good to go high, I want to see what happens when it goes low and see if shipping suddenly increases. And they went, oh, no, we can't do that. Thank you, clunk. And it was just me asking for a change to be tested in a different direction, not always in the same direction. The funny thing is, this year, the Crimson Harvest event, they kind of went with what I suggested, didn't they?
Yeah.
High sec doesn't have the loot drop.
Yep.
It doesn't have the 90 anyways. And so they have changed things. Just initially, they didn't want to listen to that sort of thing. But you got to be willing to go. And yeah, I got the door slammed in my face and went, fine, tick, and went to my little green book and went, what's next to ask for? Because just because they shut me down on one thing does not mean they said, can we get this guy to fly home today? They kept me for the whole week, and I was there for the whole week, and I was asking for things for the whole week. That's what you're electing, is people who would represent you and not be a one-trick pony. And when they get what they want or they don't get what they want, they go, well, I'm done.
Yep.
When we going for beer? Although there were some nice beer places.
There were, and a little bit too much of it.
I have, my joke, it only takes one beer to get me drunk. Usually it's the 13th. You said I had to bring one.
I did. And I totally forgot that I said, but you didn't forget, so awesome.
This is on you.
Okay, so we are out of time, so we're going to go ahead and go into the final thought. Why should players vote for you, and why should my communities put you on our ballots?
Well, I'll do the community part first. Eve Rookies is all about the new player experience and growth. This is what I represent. I'm just an earlier stage in the pipeline that you guys have become. You're really good, but you got to have the players willing to talk to you before you can get them into the various fleets that you do. I love what Eve Rookies is doing. I am encouraging everyone to vote for Cashel, so you damn well better put her on your bloody ballot. But I'm part of the same organization, just a different step. I'm not the same as Cashel because she goes with organization, whereas I'm going one-on-one contact as much as I can with a lot of support and rookie help. We need that. If we don't have new players, we don't have a game because the old players are dying off or going to other things. We always need the new blood coming into the game. Cashel's part of it, and I'm part of that pipeline to keep the new players in the game. So that's specifically to the Eve Rookies and their ballot. On the other hand, for the rest of you, what you have is a guy who is reasonable, who can take no for an answer, but actually ask why. You're getting somebody who I don't have an alliance behind me. If I get elected every time, it's been because normal players decide that I'm worth a vote. It is the only way I'm getting on. I'm not on, as far as I know, I'm not doing any horse trading that the alliances do, where we'll put your guys at 2 and 3 if you put our guys at 2 and 3. And if you look at the ballots, there are like 1,000 ballots all filled out exactly the same because a alliance message will go out and say, this is a ballot you're supposed to vote for. I don't have that. I'm asking individuals, people who are thinking for themselves in this election, which I hope is you. to consider voting for me, somebody who A, is willing to listen to you and actually go out asking for answers, B, has been connected to the game and very communicative with players. Go to my YouTube channel, see that when I was on the CSM, I did regular CSM updates, little videos that I put out, and was off the CSM, I've been doing news updates every week since January of this year. So I am not somebody to slack off. And I am stubborn as all hell. So if you get me on a task, I will keep plugging at it as much as I can. For proof of that, take a look to see that come this November, Operation Magic Schoolbus is celebrating 11 years in operation.
Wow.
I haven't run out of assets. The game hasn't ended, and I'm not dead yet. So I'm asking that you vote for somebody who represents the new players, the casual players, the guys who log in once a week and just want to play a little. I get that. You know, I'm retired now, but I was playing EVE when I had a job and my girls were growing up and that sort of thing. The avatar that I have was made by my daughter when she was about 9 years old, sitting on my lap. So this is part of the game that we have to acknowledge. Not everybody is a hardcore grognard gamer who can log in to be in a battle for 23 hours. We have people who drop in, play a little, leave, and come back and say, what can I do now? I get that, and I'm going to represent those people as well. I am trying to make the game good. I'm trying to make the game better. Not for me, the game better. Definition of better may vary. Void where prohibitive, allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking, and best of luck on your campaign.
Thank you. Best of luck on yours, too.
Awesome. Thank you.